Today on Off the Hinges, relax, pour yourself a drink, and unwind from your week as I take the next 20 minutes to answer your questions and share stories about this week's trade. I'm joined by a special guest, and I have my whiskey in hand. I'm so glad you made it. Are you ready? Let's slide into the vault. All right, it's Friday. I have my good buddy Ray Kennedy with me. And Ray, thanks for being here, man. I know we've done a little bit of talking up front, to be honest. This is the honest editor's cut. Like, we chit-chat before we go live. But I did save my very first sip of whiskey for this Friday for everybody, for you. So cheers to all of you joining. Cheers to Ray, dialing in from, where are you calling in from? Tell the people as I take a sip.
So, Josh, I am in Indianapolis. Unfortunately, I've got a big glass of water here 'cause it's a little earlier. Although, I did notice you said we were going to ruck today, so I have my rucksack.
Oh, my man.
Yo.
I always ask everybody these three questions. So the first one is, since the last time we talked until now, what are you the most thankful for?
Wow, that's a good question. So this past weekend, my two brothers and I do a event each year to celebrate my father who passed away about 20 years ago. And we get about 25 to 30 guys each year. And it's a chance to reconnect, have some competition, maybe drink a couple of beers, and tell a lot of stories about my dad. So that was this weekend, and very thankful for that.
That's fantastic. What a great way to honor him, man. What is something new that you learned this week?
So I saw a friend a couple of days ago for coffee who we haven't crossed paths for a while, and she is a musician as well as a poet. And I've been trying to do some amateur poetry, and she gave me a couple of ideas of things I could get involved with. So I learned some new ways to do some connection in the poetry space. So that was good.
So how do you desire to grow as you rest and reflect heading from this Friday right now, going into the weekend?
Chip Conley suggested this. Chip started the Modern Elder Academy. But every weekend, I think he does it on Sunday, and that's when I've been doing it too, I'll just sit down with a journal and talk about the couple of things that I learned that week and how I can apply them to the rest of my life. So it's a little bit free form, and I do it at different times of the day on Sunday, but I try to be pretty good about always doing it.
I'll give you a shameless plug right now. So for those that are listening or watching, whatever platform you're on, we're really thankful you're here. But please, if you're on Substack or LinkedIn, you get my 2 thumbs up from Siskel and Ebert to go follow Ray Kennedy because he's fantastic and you'll enjoy it. I wore this, first of all, because my little girls gave it to me. It's such a beautiful picture of today's topic on identity. The other day, they walked up the stairs, and I was sitting with my wife after dinner. They had been playing downstairs, and my middle daughter, who is 5, almost 6 years old, came walking up in the lead, and the other 2 were behind her, and she handed it to me. And we had just bought them this little kit where they can make bracelets with these elastic bands, and it's nothing flashy. But one of the very first ones they made after we gave them the gift is they made one for me, and they made a couple different shades of blue, and they said, "Dad, we know your favorite color is blue, and we wanted to make the first bracelet for you." And it filled me with a lot of thanks just for the gift that I have of being able to call myself their father. Because regardless of occupation or things that we can think we attain in life, the gift of being able to be called someone's father, that no one else on earth will ever biologically be able to claim that title. That's mine to wear and to bear with pride and with honor. And when it comes to identity, I think those sorts of things are at the core heart of what all of us seek and what fills us the most when we really appreciate them. So over to you for the very first question. So Linz asks, how many times and at what points in life has identity shifted and what caused it? But we'll hold it there because Alice very similarly asked, how does, if at all, identity change through time?
All right. Well, Linz and you said Alice, right? Those are both really good questions. There's a lot there. So a couple things that I guess I would start with is, and not knowing either of their ages and where they are in their life. Our identity starts out, as we're young, we have several containers that are important to us. We've got our family. Maybe there's a community container. There might be a church that the family's involved in. Different things that really help frame our identity when we're younger, when we're relying on others to do that. Once we get a little bit older, we can figure out, okay, some of those containers may still make sense for us. Some of them we may grow out of or decide to handle differently. The other thing I would say is our identity is part of our life's journey, right? We're always on it. And hopefully, as we get older and more mature, we're also becoming more self-aware or what I call self-wise. And that doesn't happen without effort, right? I mean, it's self-work that we have to do on ourselves, trying to understand our strengths, our weaknesses, our values, which may shift as we get older ourselves, our shadows, both our maybe our dark shadow as well as our golden shadows, and the scripts that we've started our life with that at some point may continue to serve us, and other ones we may choose to discard them at times because at that point in our life it makes sense.
But maybe from the outside, that looks like your identity is shifting. Maybe that's just maturity and wisdom, hopefully, is the shape that it takes. Mm-hmm. That's my thought on it.
One of the things that's, I think, important about identity is that we have agency in it, right? I think sometimes we might forget that and let other people create our identity for us. And I was thinking about your LinkedIn. I think I told you this the other day. The first thing you have on there is father. Father and husband, I think, right? So you've chosen that is, and you just said it a little bit ago, but that's your identity. You do all these other things too. And I think that's important that we all have agency in that, right? We all get to choose. Right. And that may change over our lives, but don't ever let other people create your identity for you.
I love that. That's fantastic. So Riho asked, do you have to make a difference between personal and social media identities, or visible and not visible to some people, to be successful when you're owning or operating a business?
There might be a little bit of depends on this. In a business like ours, mine or yours, Josh, where you are coaching and it's all about you as the person delivering the service, who you are matters a lot. And so that one's probably a little bit more straightforward of, the identity that you have on social media as people are trying to decide, hey, do I want to work with this guy and what's he all about? I think those really need to line up. There might be some scenarios where your role in a business is very different and somebody doesn't come into contact with you as a person. So maybe there you can have a little bit different social persona. Now, if it was where you might have certain values that you live, and for some reason they're very different than you deliver in your work life, that's probably a little bit of a conflict. I think more and more people want to know who they're in relationship with, right? Across the board. And so I would just encourage people to be who they are in social media. There was a great saying, I think, when we were young before social media, that if you didn't want your grandmother to see something that you did, then don't do it, right? If it's something that your grandmother wouldn't be proud of you for, then you probably shouldn't be doing it or putting it on social media.
Right. That's really good. Yeah, thanks for that. Riho, thanks for the question. Last question is, if we encourage our children to explore who they are and who they are to become, but we want them to have a core set of values, how do we find and communicate a balance between flexibility and fortitude of identity to our children? And that is a fantastic question. What are your thoughts?
And Josh, I want to hear your answer on this too, because you've spoken a lot about fatherhood already. As we think about our kids, and my kids are a little bit older, so I've lived this already. There are certain values that of course, as they're growing up, that we want to make sure they understand. Often those are communicated more so by how we act than by what we say to our children. If they see us doing certain things over and over again and acting certain ways, those are lessons that they're going to walk away from, right? Versus us just telling them these are our values, and then they see things that are in conflict. And I think that applies to other people in their lives as well. Those other containers we talked about earlier. And I think it's makes sense as to your family, as you look and say, for our family, what's important, right? What are the things that we want to carry over through the different generations, while allowing for all the individuals that allow for them to be their own personalities, yet still have those same family foundational values. So we all have those. As you get older, you can kind of continue those. I was just thinking of an example this week where my son wants to move to a different city, and was able to go out there and find a job. And we talked about, all right, what are the things as you move forward in this new role that you want to carry over, that are the foundational things that you grew up and were important to you, right? Because this job is going to challenge you in different ways. And you don't want to ever be in a position where you're forfeiting some of your own beliefs and values. And I think then, the other part of that is, as we grow and as we go to different parts of our lives, there may be things that are less important, right? That we may have grown up with, that served us well in certain parts of our life, that aren't those foundational values, that at some points we may want to give up on those because they don't serve us anymore.
For Riho and for Alice and Linz and other people that have asked questions that we're addressing here today, as you are standing strong and firm in your identity, and I'm confident that you will, don't let that waver. But as you walk through life, there are three groups of people that I really encourage you to journey with. The first group of people is someone who is slightly ahead of the road from where you are. And what that means is, let's take it from like Ray to me. And I'm not talking about an age thing. I'm talking about where you are going and where you hope to be and where you know your journey will take you. So Ray is a good buddy, a dear friend, and just a great person to connect with. He has children who are older. So just by the physical space and time of where he is as a father with older children and where I am with younger children, I haven't yet journeyed through children who are teenagers. He's there and on the other side. So there's a lot that I can learn from communicating with Ray and connecting with him and learning from his experience. We can reflect back on last week, and there's such an important reason why humility is how we start. That is the starting, acting, and ending posture of every success in life. I'm confident of that. And I can't be convinced otherwise. I will be bullheaded on that. Humility is the posture we must always maintain if we really want to learn and grow with and from each other. But it segues so neatly and perfectly into identity, because once you're humbled to realize I need to learn from people around me, I would challenge you. Have someone that's down the trail a little further who can light the way and say, hey, there's a really big root or pothole right here. You might want to zig where you thought you should zag, because if you zag, it's going to be disastrous for you. You can learn from people who have been down that trail. And there needs to be people that are in the same space as you, walking side by side, who are learning with it, who are growing with it, who can encourage you. I don't know what just happened, but there's fireworks. There you go, Ray. Man, so I would say have someone with you that you can walk next to and can really appreciate sort of the burden and the joys of experiencing something for the first time together. That's something unique and special. And if you have that, I would press into that. And I also encourage you to be the Ray to someone else's Josh. Be someone who looks for someone who's behind you in the trail, that you can look at and say, hey, out of love and humility, I would love to show you some of the things you're about to step into just by the nature of life. And I would love to partner with you and help you navigate this season together. And if you can find people in your life that are ahead of you on the trail, side by side on the trail, and behind you on the trail, your ability to pinpoint who you are as a person, it's going to be fantastic. And you're really going to learn so much about yourself from learning, nurturing, and developing those who are before beside, and behind you. And that's a very simplistic way for me to paint the picture. So I would just encourage Riho with your children. And there's going to be so many things that, as you know, buddy, you've experienced that you could predict, and so many things you could have never called the shots on. Just love them really well. And yeah, be their father when they need the discipline, but be their friend when they need someone to just hold their hand as they navigate life. And appreciate the seasonal changes that are going to come. But just because there's changes that require them to leverage different strengths, that doesn't mean that the identity of who they are and the gift that they are to the world as small children is going to change. Because the people that they are on this world will always be them. And nurture that and grow that and speak into that. And I think the simplest thing my father and my mother both taught me when I was younger, and they said, hey, when you have kids one day, I want you to remember this. Children in a home, when you're trying to teach them something, it is always caught before it is taught. And that is such a fantastic truth. And from a developmental psychologist's perspective, there's so much gold in that. But simply, watch a child learn to speak. They don't even know the alphabet. They don't even know what letters and words are. But they will mimic your speech, and they will learn to speak before they can even write a sentence. It's caught before it's taught. And when it becomes a behavioral thing, an identity thing, the power you have as a person over your child's life, your life, and others' life to speak into them the identity that you know they want and that you know they need is powerful. So the way that you speak to people, you can speak an identity of who they are, that maybe they aren't acting like it, but it's how they need to grow into it. And if you can encourage them in that, there's a lot of power in that for a small child. But very simply, I think it's about your posture with yourself and with others that really influences how much people press into their identity or shy away from it. Mm-hmm. So I want to give the mic over to you for a couple minutes to just sort of round this out for us on your thoughts on identity, purpose, and the things you've been learning.
Sure. That's a big question. I would say, Josh, that, purpose is always, as you just said, but purpose is always part of our identity. Maybe when we're younger in life, we may not think about it that way, or things kind of come along. We may go to college, we may get married afterwards, we may have kids. And so our purpose comes along with those decisions, right? We may not have thought purposefully, I am going to become a husband or a wife or a mother or father. But once we're in that, we have the purpose of raising kids. Same thing with the roles we may take, the career or careers we may have. And a lot of those things, as we think about what I'll call the first half of our lives, it's about building up our resume, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, because having a successful career may be what helps you support your family, or it may be what enables you to support your family as well as donate money to certain causes. So at a certain point in our lives, and for some people it may happen earlier, for some people it may happen later in their lives, they may get to the point where it's less about resume and more about eulogy, right? When I'm gone, and hopefully I've got some loved ones that show up, people that I've impacted, what are they saying about me? Probably not, hey, these are the jobs Ray had, or, he went on great vacations. Those things aren't going to matter. But what's going to matter is, what difference did we make in people's lives? And so, I think about it as purpose is often how we serve. And I would really encourage our listeners here to really step back at times and just think about, okay, where am I in my life, and what are the things I'm doing to serve?
The use of the word eulogy, I love how you gave a visualization of that with identity. But I'm going to turn it on you a little bit. If the person dearest to you wasn't here tomorrow, and you had to give their eulogy about who they were to you and who they were to the world, what would you say about them at their funeral? I'm going to ask you, why can't you say that to them right now? So be the person you want to be for yourself, be the person you should be to others, and tell people that are important that their identity matters to you. and that who they are in your life is valuable. And sit back and watch what that means to that person's life. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. I'm confident our listeners are so filled up from listening to you. Over to you for any last words, man.
I've already thought of the person I'm going to talk to this weekend to give them the living eulogy. So thank you for that challenge. You're doing great work, and I look forward to seeing the next one.
Awesome. Thanks, buddy. Have fun in Indy.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Off the Hinges. Don't forget to follow Foundational Coaching on your favorite social media platforms. Kick off your Saturday with me tomorrow morning at Coffee and Reflections on Substack, where I'll share my deepest reflections and most personal stories on the weekly virtue. I'm honored to be a part of your story today, and I'm proud of your growth, my friend. I can't wait for our next time together, exploring the vault.